If you're a fan of the Grishaverse, then we have a lot to discuss. Let's begin.
You entitled brat. Terror.
Let's get it together.
I don't believe any of you.
5 star, 5 star.
That was my husband.
Oh my goodness.
And take your nonsense elsewhere.
This is giving. Hello, and welcome back to Shelly's Reading Corner. For those of you who do not know me, I am, of course, Shelly, and I just love books. And in this case, it has to do with a book adaptation. And so we are going to be discussing exactly that. And if you didn't guess already from the title, we are going to be discussing Shadow and Bone, more specifically season 2, which just got released like 1 or 2 weeks ago. I binged the entire thing, and now we're just going to discuss how much has changed from the books. Now, for those of you who don't know, though it is called Shadow and Bone in reference to the initial trilogy, this book also incorporates the second series of the Grishaverse, which is Six of Crows. But believe me, guys, a lot has changed. So let's get straight into it. Now, when the series first came out, I was not on YouTube, and so any thoughts I had, I very much had to keep to myself, and just really rant to myself because I don't really have that many like friends who read a lot of fantasy. So I was just left to my own devices. But don't worry, I am going to be focusing on season 2. But first and foremost, let's just get it out of the way. The Darkling. Why is his name Kurgan? Like, where did that come from? I don't know if there's an article or some sort of explanation as to why we are not referring to the Darkling as the Darkling in the show. I don't know if this is something to do with viewers or whatnot. I do not know what type of politics went behind that decision. But quite frankly, I don't like it. There's no history behind Kurgan. Like, I just don't understand. Obviously, they do mention like him by that name. They refer to him as the Darkling when they're trying to like refer to him in like just a nonsensical way or just to insult him, which I guess that's why they relegated it to that, to just being an insult. But at the same time, I'm just like, that's why we call him the Darkling in the book. Is it not? The fact that people refer to him as that to remind him that they will also always see him as a threat, always see him as kind of a villain, and also in reference to the power that he has. Like, what's with Kurgan? I don't get it. But now that that's out of the way, let's actually focus on specifically season 2 and how it's differed from the books. Now, season 1, Shadow and Bone, specifically focused on the first book, Shadow and Bone, and also a bit of the first Six of Crows duology book, Six of Crows. Now, a few things were changed in season 1, which has directly impacted what happens in season 2, and we saw that a lot. So first and foremost, season 2, we would have assumed would have followed through and be a reflection of Siege and Storm, which is the second book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. Guys, they did that, kind of. Basically, season 2 is a combination of both second and third books in the initial Shadow and Bone trilogy. So Siege and Storm and Ruin and Rising both got combined into season 2. Now, because of this, the storyline was squished up together, and there were just a lot of things that happened in the second books and even the third books that were just scrapped completely from season 2. And we're really just going to dissect that because I did not know what was going on half of the time, and I can definitely sympathize with a lot of Grishaverse fans because I know we were all sitting there going, what the actual hell is happening here? Now, one of the more important things that we should take note of is the introduction of Nikolai / Sturmhond. We get introduced to him as Sturmhond first in Siege and Storm, and then obviously following on in the second book, his identity as Prince Nikolai gets revealed. Basically what happens is in the book, the Darkling finds Alina and Mal, captures them, puts them on a book, which is, privateered by Sturmhond, and then we figure out that he's on their side, and he helps them escape from the Darkling, and yada yada, and then, all that. Now, in this season 2, because of the introduction and the incorporation of the crows from Six of Crows, that got changed. So basically what happens is that Sturmhond is introduced to the crows first before he ever comes into contact with Alina and Mal. Now, for those of you who have read the Six of Crows book, you do know that Nikolai slash Sturmhorn does eventually meet the crows, but very, very later on and for a whole different task, for them to deal with a whole different enemy. Now, in the show, we see him meeting Kaz and the crew, and then for the entire season, they actually work together to help Alina find the sword that can help defeat the Darkling, the sword that was genuinely never mentioned in any of the initial trilogy books. So that is a whole other thing. So yeah, that was one of the first things that was just changed from the get. I did not necessarily like it, but I didn't think it would be too much of a big deal. And then I continued to watch the show. Now, another thing that was very, very easily noticeable from this show is that we get way more of the Darkling's perspective in the show, which I think is actually a good thing. It's probably one of the only like good changes they made. I won't even lie. Basically, like, obviously in the books, it's mostly through Alina's perspective. You know, in Six of Crows, we get perspectives from all of our crows. But in the Shadow and Bone trilogy, we only get Alina's perspective. In this show, we get a lot of, like, scenes of, like, what the Darkling was going through when everything was happening. So we get a lot of his perspective. And as he's the main villain and as, like, he has a big connection to, like, what started everything, it was actually good to see what he's going through, his thought process, what he was doing while they were trying to defeat him. So I actually like that. But yeah, we do get more of his perspective in the show, which was actually cool. Now, this storyline in the show really threw me off. And I feel like it really threw you guys off. Part of me thinks that they threw it in there just for book people to not be able to say that we know what's going to happen, because this is what it feels like. So basically, as I said, Sturmhorn actually ends up meeting Kaz first, and then he reveals that he was the one who sent Kaz on the heist in the first season. So basically, yes, Kaz was hired by, you know, someone else to do that, but then that guy was hired to hire Kaz. So it was a whole thing. And so he reveals himself to Kaz, and then they end up working together. And then Alina and the crew, they discover that the Darkling has lived and that he has the Nichivoya. He's created the Nichivoya. And because of that, they've encountered him, and they realize that we cannot kill these creatures with any of our powers. We cannot do that. We cannot do anything to them unless, like, they're touching someone. So they're just like, how do we actually kill them? And then this is the biggest, like, change that I could have ever imagined. They're just like, there's a sword that could potentially help, and could potentially help us, like, solve this problem and kill them. And the sword, they're just like, the sword is part of, like, you know, a myth. It was created by a saint, Saint Nayar. And then there's a whole storyline where Zoya comes in, and she teams up with Tolia and the crows to go to Shuhan to go and get the sword. Let's get something straight. Zoya does not meet the crows until the second book of Six of Crows. Okay? So that definitely got on my nerves. And Tolia has actually never really had any interaction with the crows. And so the fact that they had, like, a lot of interaction, that threw me off. This entire storyline, they end up meeting, like, a real life saint, as in, like, the saint is still alive. They have a whole, like, you know, battle with her, and then, like, she gives them some wisdom, and she actually ends up giving them the sword. But I'm just here like, where the heck was Saint Nayar in any of the books? Like, the initial trilogy, obviously, you know, they're mentioned because we know about the saints. The Six of Crows duology, nothing. Now, for Grishaverse fans who have read the book, I do know that you are aware that there are other books in the Grishaverse, like The Lives of Saints. And Sancta Nayar, her story is actually explained in that book. But she had no involvement in any heist and any scheme to take down the Darkling. Nothing, okay? She was dead by the time any of the books happened. So the fact that they had a whole storyline where they got to go to Shuhan, I'm just like, I don't know where they plucked that from, but that threw me off. I just didn't know what to make of that. But you know what? I kept pushing. I'm just like, you know what? We got to see, you know, a lot of Shuhan. We got to see a bit of their culture. So I wasn't too upset. It was a cool, like, diversion. But I'm just like, this was nowhere in the books. You guys literally plucked that out of thin air. Like, legit. I don't know where you took it from. So that's, like, a major change that they did. Now, another, like, major change that, like, had a lot of repercussions for what happened later has to do with Nikolai. So if you've read the book, you know that there's a point where Nikolai takes the crew to, like, the secret base where he has a lot of his inventions. It's on, like, a mountainside cliff, like, secret lair or whatever. And then they get to go there, and then that's where all like secrets come out. So many things happen. And then Bagra trains Alina on how to use her powers more and how to actually get more power out of her, shoot to further distances. Like, it was a great actual, part of the story. And then even in that moment, the Darkling ends up finding them, infecting Nikolai, and then Bagra sacrifices herself to help them escape and to probably give them a chance of defeating the Darkling. Guys, this was shifted completely. That entire thing changed. First of all, they didn't go to Nikolai's secret mountain lair. We didn't see it, which was really, really annoying because I was really hoping to see how they made that happen. So that got shifted out of the way. Second, they changed the way Bagra died, which I am really upset about. Now, the way Bagra died in the show, it definitely helped to move the plot along and help in their battle on the show with the Darkling. But I do not think it was as powerful as the way Bagra died in the book. She still went out like a boss, but I'm just like, she went out like a badass in the book. Let's not get it twisted. So I was truly upset that they kind of took away the power of her like launching herself off a cliff in the book. She still like sacrificed herself in the show, that led to her death. But I'm just like, while it was emotional and that has power in its own right, I'm just like, the badassery was removed. So I was not too keen on how they did that. And now, this is like one of the major changes from the book. Now, if you read the book, you know that, with one of the big battles, the Darkling, obviously aiming to hurt everyone around Alina and just people who are helping her, infects Nikolai with his demon powder, smoke, Nichevoya, whatever. And then so Nikolai ends up transforming into like some twisted human version of a Nichevoya, and he becomes this mindless animal. And then we all know that even travels all the way to the King of Scars, which is Nikolai's duology. So we know that very specific move has a lot of impact because it goes to a whole other story, and it also plays into Nikolai's story and Alina's story and like the Darkling story. All of that, it all kind of wraps up together. Because there was never a cliffside interaction, the Darkling never actually meets them there. There was no battle, there was no confrontation between them before the major battle. Nikolai does not get like infected in the way that we saw in the book. Now, in the season finale, they end up actually, fighting the Nichevoya, not really the Darkling, and then Nikolai gets bitten. And at the end of the season, in the last episode towards the end, we see that the bite has left some residue. But this is the thing: Nikolai doesn't know what this residue is meant to do. He has never transformed to a beast. He doesn't know that it does anything or that it's going to transform him. In the book, he's very aware of what, obviously, in the book, he's fully transformed to a monster, nothing can be done. But obviously in his King of Scars duology, he's very aware that, he shifts into a monster every now and then, definitely, because he has some human in him. So that is a very major change to the story, and that's actually going to impact a lot that they do moving forward. Now, another major storyline, which was passed by completely, and that really impacted how the final battle went and everything, is the Apparat and the Soldat Sol. Now, we know that the Apparat is this religious leader of the people who believe in the saints and, kind of crazy. And the Soldat Sol are, the fanatics who are part of that church. And, there was a whole storyline about, him trying to grasp onto power using Alina, and Alina getting kidnapped and, being trapped underground as they try to escape the Darkling, and then her power was gone for a bit. All this happened in the second, third book. There was a lot happening involving the Apparat and the Soldat Sol. Tamar and Tolia had a connection to the Soldat Sol that they didn't reveal until later on, but they were still on Alina's side. There was so much going on in the books that involved the Apparat and the Soldat Sol. The Apparat did not make a single contribution to the season whatsoever. None. The Soldat Sol are non-existent. We don't hear about them. To our knowledge, according to season 2, they don't exist. Okay? So if you're hoping to see anything involving them, get out your head. It's just not going to happen, and I apologize. So that's very major because in the book, obviously, The Sol are the people who inherit Alina's ability when she finally gets the Firebird ability from Mal, and she shares her ability with the Sol, and they are able to actually vanquish like everything, all of the darkness. Because the Sol doesn't exist, that doesn't happen, does it? Now this is like probably the final kind of major break, the final battle against the big bad, i.e. the Darkling. The crows are involved, and the crows were actually heavily involved. Like I said, Sturmhorn meets with the crows in season 2, and so they're actually heavily involved. They have way more interactions. They have way more of a storyline in season 2. So they actually get involved in the final battle. Meanwhile, the crows weren't actually introduced to us until years after the battle. Like the first Six of Crows book happens years after the initial battle with the Darkling. So the fact that they're involved, nonsense. But yeah, they're involved in the final battle. They bring the sword that can get rid of the Nichivoya and all that, and that's great. We love that for them. Yeah, let's just leave that there. But basically, with the Sol not there, Alina is facing the Darkling. She gets her Firebirds through Mile, and she gets rid of the darkness on her own. But because there are no Sol, and this is major, she does not lose her powers, guys. She doesn't lose her powers. And not only does she not lose her powers, she doesn't, fake her death. She doesn't fake her death. She remains engaged to Nikolai, and her and Mal officially break up. They're just if we come back to each other, we'll come back to each other. But yeah, so she still has her powers. She doesn't fake her death. She's engaged to Nikolai. And she's now part of a triumvirate with our girls Zoya and Genya. Now, you guys might be thinking, how is that possible? Because in the books, with after everything was destroyed, the triumvirate who are under Nikolai was Zoya, Genya, and David. So why is Alina there? What happened to David, you might ask? Oh, you want to know what happened? So, season 2 killed off David. They killed off David before he got to give Genya beautiful ring. Before any of that, they killed off David. Even though David made it all the way to the King of Scars duology, him and Genya were very happy. And Genya has already gone through so much. And you guys kill her bow off before she has the time to probably process and get through some of the trauma she's been through with the Darkling. Unacceptable. And also, I just want to make a side note that if you've read the books, you know about Dominic, Nikolai's friend, when he was in the army, when he was still fighting. So Dominic in the books is already dead. It's just someone from Nikolai's past who reflects on, who inspired Nikolai to really just make the world a better place and be the king that the world deserves. Dominic dies in Nikolai's arm in the final battle. Now that I feel like that's extra trauma that we didn't need in the battle. Nikolai had already dealt with that, was dealing with that trauma, in the battle that is. But to now have him meet him and actually see their friendship, how great it was, and kill him right before our eyes, unacceptable. But yeah, guys, those are major changes. Now, I've mostly spoke about the major changes concerning the Shadow and Bone, the initial trilogy, but let's actually speak to our crows. Now, I don't want to rant because Six of Crows, as most people know, is legit my favorite book ever, and as that is the case, I have always said, and I stand by the fact that Six of Crows should not have been the Shadow and Bone TV series. They should have gotten their own series. They should have gone, let it be a sequel to the Shadow and Bone series. Because by mixing the plots, they now have to sacrifice a lot of the crow-centric plots for the sake of the Shadow and Bone plot to move that along. And that does not sit well with me at all. First of all, if you watch season 1, you know that in season 1, the parts in season 1 that involved the crows was barely mentioned in the first book, and it had nothing to do with the first book's plot. It had nothing to do with the first book plot. They literally made most of that plot up on their own, except for Nina and Matthias's plot that they did speak about in the books. None of that actually happened in the books. We still haven't gone to the Ice Castle now. So that's season 1. We don't know what's going on. Season 2, keep in mind that they have ignored all of book 1 of Six of Crows. They put so much content from Crooked Kingdom in there while also changing it up as well. So in my head, I'm just so you skipped book 1, skipped a lot of delicious scenes that we would have gotten from book 1, and then you insert a bunch of scenes from book 2 from Crooked Kingdom out of order and out of context sometimes. Are you okay? And you know what's so funny about that is that even with that happening, the crows were the stars of that show. I'm sorry. I was watching like the scenes intently just so I could be able to give you guys a proper review. But I was here. I was like this whenever I had to do anything with like Alina and Mal. But when it had anything to do with the crows, I was attentive. I was here like catching my breath. First of all, every single actor, every single member of the crows, you guys have my heart. Kaz, my heart forever. Inez, you are my girl. Oh my goodness, you are my girl in this. Jesper, I love you so much. Wylan, ooh, I'm loving you. Matthias, I feel so much for you. And Nina, hang in there, okay? We have a chance. We have a chance. The crows stole the show, which is why they should have had their own. They're not meant to be secondary or even, you know, yes, they're complementary, but complementary in their own setting. Okay, they should have had their own show. That being said, I don't know where this leaves us, but there's so much potential because of what has happened, okay? Now, season 3, there's a lot of potential things that could happen because of what happened in season 2. Now, I definitely know that they can draw a lot from, like, the book still, but I definitely know they will definitely need to, I keep saying definitely a lot, and I'm sorry, but they will most certainly need to add more of the original storylines because of the original storylines and the changes they made in the first 2 seasons. For example, we didn't get to see Matthias a lot. Matthias should have been freed by now, okay? Matthias should have been freed, but because he hasn't been freed, we know that the break-in to the ice castle in Fjerda, we know that there is still potential for that to happen. So I am excited for that, for him to be free, you know, for him and Nina to have their reconciliation moment, and then actually, you know, go to the ice castle in Fjerda. Now, that might not happen still, because at the end of season 2, they actually mentioned Gerda. They mentioned Parem, and we know that that is a huge secondary plot in Crooked Kingdom, and so we know that there's going to be a lot more of like Wyland, you know, we're going to meet, you know, the other criminal that we know about in the Six of Crows duology, which is Mr. Van Eck. We're going to see a lot of his involvement because in the season 2, even though Wyland was introduced, they make no mention of the fact that he is Van Eck's son. Like, no mention of that. It's like he literally just, they're just like, oh, here's this guy that Jesper slept with in season 1. Oh, like, it's like literally, and even Jesper forgot about that because Jesper's mind, wherever is it. But yeah, so they make a mention of Jesper at the end of season 2 and that the crows have been given a contract to, you know, sort it out. So that plot's going to happen, and they're definitely going to need Matthias for it. But there's a whole other thing. At the end of season 2, Matthias has this weird partnership now with, who do you think? Pekka Rollins, okay? So Pekka Rollins, we know that Kaz defeated Pekka Rollins in Crooked Kingdom once again. Second book implementation. But we didn't really see much of his involvement in jail. But then now, Pekka has now met Matthias, and they came up with a short partnership, which Pekka negated on. So that probably might not stand too long. But then I'm just like, we're probably going to have like at least one episode where, you know, they're still in prison and Pekka is like causing hell for Matthias in there. So there's a development that's going to happen. But we're definitely going to see more of Matthias, since we didn't see him at all in this season. Like, we saw him like in a few scenes, and he was always in jail suffering. I felt so bad. But you know what? We have to be patient, you know, so that we can get our baby and so that we can get Matthias and Nina together. Yeah. Now, with Nikolai having that infection that should eventually turn him into like that human Javoya, we should see a transformation of him into that monster in season 3. But with him now, you know, going into that transformation, what's going to happen like to the actual King of Stars adaptation? I'm just like, David's dead, you know. Alina was meant to be dead, okay? I know she did come back in like the end of King of Scars, the second book, but I'm just like, I still can't get over the David death. I'm probably just hanging on to that. But yeah, I want to see how they're actually going to like shift the plot of King of Scars, because, you know, they've changed how he's going to become the monster, and the fact that he doesn't already know that he is the monster. So that's probably going to have a plot to play in that. There's also the issue of like Nikolai being engaged to Alina, so he's technically not single. A whole major point of the plot of King of Scars, the first book, is the fact that they were trying to find him a wife. So while he had disappeared in King of Scars, they used wedding preparations to kind of like pass the time and keep a distraction for the people, because they didn't want them to know that, you know, your king is half monster and he's trying to find a cure for himself and all that going on. So I'm just like, we can probably use Alina and Nikolai's wedding as that distraction, but you know, there's a whole secondary plot with like the bride, like in the Shuhan relation. But I'm guessing that, you know, once again, Alina, since she's part Shu, she can do that. I honestly, I know I can see how they're going to like make sure that the changes they make don't affect too much of the plot, and they have their contingencies. But I'm just like, you still ruined it. You not ruined it, but you still changed it in a way that I don't particularly appreciate. Mal has taken on the mantle of Sturmhorn because him and Alina have broken up, and he needs to now go and find his purpose. And because Nikolai is going to be king full time, they need someone to still be Sturmhorn, and he's just like, no one better for the job, and they both agreed. Yeah, so Mal is taking the mantle of Sturmhorn, not really the job, because they're like, he's just like Tolia and Tamar are in charge. And you know what? As Tolia and Tamar are in charge, you know, they're running the seas. This is another major plot that has really upset me. Okay, Inez and Kath. We know their relationship is on the rocks always, to be honest, but you know, they have just a great relationship with them, and they're working through their shared trauma and, you know, their individual traumas and all that. And, you know, there is this beautiful line, and I am happy that they delivered it in the show, because it's just such an amazing line where Inez tells Kaz, I will have you cast Brecker with no armor, or I will not have you at all. Absolutely like broke our hearts in the book. And obviously we saw Kaz's progression, we saw like his character development, and we saw his effort and actually, you know, wanting to, you know, let Inez have him, you know, but he's still working through it. Yeah, that scene was had, and you know, they had the whole battle, and then she was going to leave to like deal with the slavers, and then like at the very end, you know, we all know what happened with their relationship, kind of. In the show, Inez goes, she leaves the crows, and she's now with Tolia and Tamar, and now Mal, who's being Sturmhorn, to hunt down slaver ships. What the hell was that? What is actually going on? Like, no. Obviously, you know, because now that they have the Jurda Parem heist, that Cass has that job, they're going to need their race back. So I'm expecting that in season 3, she's gonna come and just be, or you know, she's gonna pop up when they're in trouble and say something cheeky like, I'm gone for a month and you guys are already in trouble, or something like that. But the fact that she's actually not with them, she's actually left. There's always that, oh, leave. That Kath was telling her to leave, and she was saying, I'm going to leave, but she never actually did. In the show, they made it actually a thing where she's left. And then Tolia, he had a little flirty eyes for her, and I would be so upset if in season 3 they come back and Tolia and Inez are a couple. I will lose my absolute mind. Like, why are you interrupting our babies in their journey to each other? You know what, Tolia, I love you, and actual casting for his character, brilliant. I'm just like, I feel like you made Tolia King come to life, and I loved it. But don't mess around with my babies. No. And another thing that I know a lot of people are annoyed at is the fact that Jesper and Wyland, while book fans, we had to go through the insanely slow burn of their relationship, they became like a couple by like episode like 4, I think. I think it was episode 4. And I'm just like, you guys just met and you guys already a couple. We had to wait 2 books for anything to happen. And it was at the end of the stupid book. So what was that about? What the heck was that about? I'm just so annoyed. Yeah, so guys, that was like some of the major changes in Shadow and Bone season 2. Like major changes from like the books. Honestly, guys, let me know if I'm the only person who's like supremely annoyed, because I cannot be the only person who's annoyed. But all that being said, there were good changes. I actually do like the storyline with the new saint, because I did like Tolia hanging out with the crows. I did like, because I didn't get to interact that much in any of the books, so I actually did like seeing that. I actually like getting to see more of Tolia's personality. The Zoya being inserted into the crows heist was weird, but it was okay. I neither liked it nor disliked it. It was just something that I was indifferent to. And I did enjoy that we got to see the crows interact more with King Nikolai. I didn't want them to be involved in the war with the Darkling. That was unnecessary, and I just honestly do not think it added to them at all. Quite frankly, I just think that part needed to be booted out. They weren't that involved, but they were involved in the final battle, and I'm just like, that's not necessary. The fact that we didn't get to see the apparat until like the last like 2 minutes where he was the one to be at Nikolai's coronation while giving him a thinly veiled threat. I'm just like, he had such a big role in the initial trilogy, and this is what you guys are doing. Also, there's this side plot that, Alina might, be drawn to the darkness because she produced black shadows instead of white light when she was at Nikolai's coronation. It was a mini thing at the end, and I'm just like, so not only is she alive, and she's taken David's position in the triumvirate, and she's not in hiding, and she's still engaged to Nikolai. So many changes, but now you guys are out here trying to make her dark and trying to make her evil. I don't know where this is going. I feel like by season 3, book fans will really just be sat there as confused as the people in the TV show. And I know that some people who just watch TV show will be happy, but as a fan of the books, especially as a fan of the Six of Crows books, now, if you continue to mess with my characters, I will definitely be rioting. But all in all, the show was entertaining. I won't lie and say I didn't enjoy it. I did enjoy it, but like I said, mostly for the crows. Mostly for the crows. Genuinely, any scene with Kaz just had me like this. Like, you see how my shoulders just automatically went, and my breath just hitched. That was me anytime Kaz was in a scene. If it was Kaz and Inez, it went even higher because my heart almost stopped. I was just like, oh my gosh. But yeah, the others, I was just like, I will say one thing though. TV show Alina and Mal had more chemistry than book Alina and Mal. I'm just like, bruh. Alina was really just my least favorite character in the entire Grishaverse. I know that sounds mean, but I'm just like, sis, you were just not compelling. Everyone else was just more compelling. Everyone else. But yeah, guys, that, I know this is very, very long. I've said a lot, but this is what happened, and this is what I mean when I said that I was so terrified for Pretties to be adapted into a TV show, because every time there's a book adaptation or a TV adaptation from a book, this is what happens. They just change so much. And I know that obviously Lee, she's a part of like, consulting in the show, and I'm happy. That's probably why we have so much accurate representations of our characters and even some storylines. But I'm just like, ooh, they're changing a lot, Lee. They're changing a lot. But I am confident that Lee, who's written such great books, will find a way to just ensure that however the show ends, when it eventually ends, it will end correctly. So I'm still hopeful, and like I said, it was still an enjoyable experience. But just beware that so many things have changed from the book. So if you're going in there as a book fan, just be ready. But yeah, guys, this was a very long rant discussion. But yeah, I just had to just let you guys know, and also get these few things off of my chest. But yeah, it's a lot, but we're here for it. As book fans, we are definitely here to support our authors and everything that they do, which includes the TV show adaptations. But yeah, I will definitely be here again. Come back next time, for more bookish discussions. It might be a book review, it might be a book tag, it might be a discussion on a TV adaptation. Who knows what's next? But yeah, let's just have some fun together discussing our favorite things, which are books. And yeah, so as we go, be sure to like, comment, and share. And if you haven't already, of course, subscribe, and so that you can always be notified and be in tune with all of our bookish fun. But yeah, until next time, guys, bye.